Hello and welcome back to another DPS class breakdown. This is Draven from the US Burning Legion server, and we are in patch 4.2 going over Marksman Hunter DPS. I'll do a two-part video. The first part will, as normal, cover spec, gear, stats, a little bit of rotation, macros, my UI, my interface, my add-ons, and just some general hunter gameplay, pets, stuff like that. As our part is going to be all about the combat, the actual damage, rotation in depth, when to use cooldowns, stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get started, and we might as well start with stats, gearing, and reforging. Generally, more or less, your stat priority is going to be agility over hit rating to the cap of 8%, followed by crit, and then haste depending on whether or not you have a 2 or a 4 set bonus, and then mastery. I'll have to qualify that mastery, if you do have your general haste cap for your gear, mastery does take priority over excess haste. Alright, let's start with crit. Crit is by far our hardest, our biggest throughput stat. You want to stack it wherever possible. Now what I meant by the haste versus mastery is that if you only have a 2-piece bonus, my character has my 4-piece. My character's name is Draven Veta. If you have the 2-piece bonus, ideally you want your haste to be about 5.4%. What that's going to let you do is it's going to give you a 1.5 second cast time on your steady shot. Now, if like me, you have your 4-piece bonus, ideally, you want to have roughly 13%. I believe the exact number is 12.98%. But that's assuming you have perfect latency, amazing reaction time, stuff like that. It's always best to give yourself a little bit more, just in case, to account for those different variables. So, for the 2-piece bonus, 5.4%. Or probably round up to 5.5 or 5.6 to account for latency and reaction time. And if you have the 4-piece bonus, you're looking for about 13.1, 13.2%. Unfortunately for my character, I wasn't able to get that much haste from my gear without sacrificing a whole bunch of crit. So I went ahead and simply took about 7.25, 7.24% hit or haste. That's what works for me. That's what I'm happy with. I'm okay with that. Go ahead and mess around with your different haste values. Use a website like www.femaledwarf.com, stuff like that. Use outside sources. Help you figure out what's best for you, and then just go from there. Once you hit those caps, the 5.5 or the 13.1, you're gonna want to go ahead and start stacking your mastery. So, provided you have your haste cap, I'm going to call it a cap, and your hit cap, you want crit followed by mastery and then any excess haste. If you don't have those haste caps, those haste little benchmarks, if you will, you're going to want to go ahead and hit those first before you start stacking any mastery. Now when it comes to gemming and enchanting, ideally, if it's a good socket bonus like this one, if you needed the extra hit rating, this was a blue socket. I went ahead and took the 20 agility, 20 hit rating for it. I have a lot of 20 agility, 20 crit. More or less, you just want to gem straight agility, unless the socket bonus is really nice, like this 10 agility one, or it's a blue socket and you need a little bit of extra hit rating. Then go ahead and just take the purple gem and try and get your socket bonus, as well as your push you up on that hit rating for whatever you need. Enchants are all pretty standard. Alright, moving on. Let's go ahead and cover talents. I'll go ahead and go over what I didn't take as opposed to what I did take. I didn't take rapid killing because unless it's a fight with adds, it's not going to help you. Because it says after killing an opponent that yields experience or honor. That means you have to kill something to benefit from this talent. Which is great if there's adds around. And there's a few fights in 4.2 where there are adds. Beth Talok, Shanox, so they're there. But personally, for me, I'm not going to put 2 talents into it just to make my steady shot and I probably won't even be using aim shot by that point in the fight. But to make my steady shot 20% stronger, it's not worth it to me. So I'm not taking that talent. I'm not taking silencing shot because an interrupt on a 20-second cooldown, 1, isn't reliable, and 2, generally, given any raid comp, you'll have more than enough people who can interrupt reliably once every 10 seconds, or if you have an Ellie Shaman, once every like 4 or 6 seconds, something like that. So for me to take this, I thought it'd be a waste. You could argue against it. Some people like to take it, so go ahead if you're one of those people. Termination. I thought long and hard about this talent because it's great for burn phases. However, how many steady shots am I really going to get off on a target who has less than 25% health? It's just a little extra focus for those points. I mean, I don't have a hard time with focus anyways, so I don't see how, during the burn phase, I don't see myself strapped for focus. So I felt no need for this talent. Again, you could argue against it. You could take this talent. That'd be fine. If you like it, go ahead. It's all preference. And resistance is futile. Who's going to be running away from me? I don't think the boss is going to be running away from me. I'm pretty sure I'm not that scary. So, I'm assuming that a talent that basically just makes my kill command refund some focus costs when the guy is running away from me isn't gonna help me too much. So for me, I didn't take this. That's a PvP talent in my opinion. I took Concussive Barrage just so that on ad fights I can multi-shot them, they get dazed. It's a great way to combo that with a trap. Everything else is pretty standard and understandable within the marksman tree. In the survival tree, I took Pathing 3 out of 3, ranged haste 3%. Come on, it's like amazing. There's no reason not to take that, in my opinion. One with Nature just increases the attack power you get from Aspect of the Hawk. Increases the focus you get from Aspect of the Fox. It's a pretty sweet talent. There's no reason not to take it. Put 2 in Bestial Discipline just so I can get down here into Frenzy and buff my pet's attacking. For my pet talents, I'm using a cat, at least for my dummy testing, because he's got that sweet strength agility buff, which will by far trump out anything else. Most raids will have a Death Knight or a Warrior that can provide a battle shout. So good second options would be a Wolf with a 5% crit, but there's also plenty of classes that could bring that if you have like a Boomkin in there, or Feral Druid, something like that. Yeah, Feral Druid. If he's covering that, you might want to bring in a Raptor pet. It's I don't want to say underrated, but people don't think to apply their Sunder Armors. I know a lot of Warriors that just don't take the time to apply Sunder Armor for whatever reason, and it's stupid. So it's nice to just have that backup. It's increased, reduced armor on the boss. So those are my top 3 pets for PvE. Cat, Wolf, Raptor. That's what I like. In their talents, Serpent Swiftness, increased attack speed, it's all good. Dash, this is just for mobility purposes. Bloodthirsty, this basically was just a fill-in talent later on. I then went 3 out of 3 in Spiked Collar, 3 out of 3 in Calling of the Herd, Spider's Bite, took 1 Call of the Wild, 1 in Rabid, and this is where I had to put that fill point in, and Bloodthirsty was the only one that seemed like it would increase my damage enough to make it count. And then my last 2 points went into Wild Hunt. As for glyphs, I went ahead and took Steady Shot, Kill Shot, and Arcane Shot, as well as Deterrence, Disengage, and Trap Launcher. And the minors really don't matter, but I took Lesser Proportion, Feign Death, and Revive Pet. Now this is a matter of gameplay, depending if you're the type of person who doesn't only use the aim shot during the careful aim phase of a fight, the first 10%, then if you continue to use it throughout, and I've seen hunters do it, I've seen them do well, you're going to want to take aim shot over arcane, because you're probably not going to be using your arcane shot very much. But if you play like me, where you only use your aim shot while you have a haste buff up, or in the first 10% of the boss's health, you're going to want to use arcane shot, because arcane shot is going to be your dump, your focus dump. Alright, we covered that. Let's go ahead and cover macros. There's all kinds of nifty macros for hunters and, you know, disengage macros that you can wing clip the person. That's a PvP. The only real PvE DPS macro I have is just my trinket macro. It's got every buff from any of the pets I might use. Rapid Fire, and then we go into my pet stuff. Furious Howl, Rabid, Call of the Wild, Ancient Hysteria for when I play BM, Bestial Wrath for when I play BM, Terrifying Roar, Roar of Courage, and then down here, Potion of the Tol'vir. And this /use 10, all that is I'm an engineer, and I get an amazing glove enchant that increases my agility by 480 for 10 seconds, and that's only on a 1 minute cooldown, which is orgasmic. So I have that macroed in there as well. Let's go ahead and go over my UI. Up here is an add-on called Titan Panel. It's just a nifty little add-on with a lot of utility. It's not necessary to DPS. It's just an add-on that I like to have. Down here I have my chat box. My bars are right here. The way they're set up is between a combination of Bartender and Button Facade. Button Facade allows me to turn them into the circles and put this green background around them. Stuff like that. Bartender allows me to move them around where I choose. Recount, Omen. I'm using Skada because Recount is down on 4.2. This map is just Sexy Map. It allows you to move your map around freely as well as put an art around it. I'm all into the aesthetics. This bar right here, this is called Fort Exorcist. It's a cooldown tracker. I really, for me, as on my hunter, I use it mostly to track the cooldown on my Chimera Shot. Because for me, Chimera Shot is the alt and then number 4. So instead of actually doing that to look at the cooldown time on it, I just look at this little bar. It also tracks my potions, my rapid fire, and stuff like that. But more often than not, I use it for my bar. I use it for my trinket proc, Essence of the Cyclone. The proc's called Twisted. And it'll pop up on this bar and let me have a general idea of when the internal cooldown is up and when I can expect it to proc again. These bars right here is just called DHUD. I believe it's DHUD 3. It's just a heads up display, so I don't have to keep an eye on my numbers. I don't like that. I like to look at my heads up display and get a general idea. If my orange bar is down here, I'm like, oh, I got roughly 50 focus, you know, whatever it may be. I believe that's all the necessary add-ons. I have ones like that turn my health frame, my target health frame, all fancy looking. That's simply called Squid Frames. Completely aesthetic. You don't need it for any kind of DPS. It's all for looks. I believe that's it for interface, macros, stats, glyphs, talents. Let's go over some general gameplay for hunters. For marksman hunters, the things you want to know, the 3 big things you want to watch out for is 1, always keep your steady shot buff up, improved steady shot. When you cast 2 steady shots in a row, you'll get a buff. I know my buff is up because I have these little wings pop up. It's called Power Auras. I suggest you guys learn how to use them. They're great. This little timer in the middle tells me how long the buff has. These green ones inside basically just tells me, hey, your target doesn't have Serpent Sting. Cast Serpent Sting. Up here is a power order to let me know my trinket procced. So that's always good to have on hand. Let's see, I believe that's just about it for that. Always keep your buff up. Always make sure that when your Chimera Shot comes off a cooldown, you have enough focus to use it immediately. You want to immediately put it back on cooldown. And don't use aim shot unless you're under a haste buff. At least that's my philosophy. A very good hunter on my server named Novin taught me that. One of the best hunters I know. So in short, make sure every time Chimera Shot pops up, you have enough focus for it. Always keep your buff up for improved steady shot. You just got to get 2 consecutive steady shots in a row. And never use aim shot unless you're under Bloodlust or Rapid Fire. So that should just about do it for part 1 of this video. We'll go ahead and I'll start part 2. Look out for it. It's going to be an in-depth look at rotation, cooldown usage, and my actual 5-minute test on this here dummy. So, until next time, I'll see you guys then. Have a good one.